Good afternoon. My name is Neil Darrington. I'm the Faculty Executive Director for the Faculty of Arts. I'd like to welcome you to this event, exploring the potential, your potential with an arts degree. I'll just do a few introductory remarks before we get the event underway, but we'll begin with an acknowledgement of country. So as we start today's event, I did want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Macquarie University land. This is the Wallamutta campus of Macquarie University. And so I want to acknowledge those traditional custodians, the Wallamutta clan of the Darug Nation, whose cultures and customs have nurtured and continue to nurture this land since the Dreamtime. And we do pay our respects to elders past, present and future as we start this event today. I'm very glad to see you all here in the room and also online. Thanks for coming along. I'll just give a brief introduction to how we think about the Bachelor of Arts here at Macquarie University. And we've done a bit of work with employers thinking about the Bachelor of Arts. And one of the things that I took away from that work, talking to students, talking to employers, is that a Bachelor of Arts in the Australian higher education sector is perhaps one of the most misunderstood degrees that there is in the sector. And particularly when you think about employment opportunities and what your life might look like having completed a Bachelor of Arts. And the reason I say it's misunderstood is because sometimes people think that the career opportunities, the opportunity to grow as an employee into leadership positions, to progress in your career, to make a decent salary, those kinds of things, we tend to think about that kind of context in the context of other degrees. But the Bachelor of Arts, when you talk to employers, they will say to, and they did say to us repeatedly, we really, really, really want to hire arts graduates. And this was people from the Commonwealth Bank, from insurance industry, from in government agencies, really had a hunger for employing arts, humanities and social science graduates. And then we took that information back and thought, well, what are we doing with our degree that speaks to some of these concerns that employers have? And we did a lot of work in that space. And if you're doing the Bachelor of Arts, you would have seen the Arts Hub and the Transferable Skills Framework. These are the things that we've done to say that there are employable skills that you learn in an arts degree. And in some ways, you learn particularly in arts degree. Things like communication skills, critical thinking skills, interpersonal skills. These are the sorts of things that are very, very germane to the Bachelor of Arts. And so what we've tried to do with this degree is sort of help students studying the degree to understand that you might be majoring in philosophy or ancient history or a passion area that you have. But as you do that, you're going to learn skills that are really, really valuable in the workplace. And a Bachelor of Arts degree is actually a really great stepping off point into your career. So I'm really glad to see you at this event. I'm really thankful to our panelists for coming along to share their thoughts about how this works. Studying an arts humanities degree and moving into the workforce, and more broadly, realizing your potential. And we really believe here at Macquarie that the arts degree, our humanities study is really important and really helpful, and hopefully can be important and helpful to each of you. So with that said, we've done a lot of work in this space, really excited to have you here. And I'll hand over to Lena, who will introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Neil. Well, my name is Lena Corso. I'm a career development consultant here within the Faculty of Arts, and I'm part of the Employability and Graduate Success team here at Macquarie University. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists today. There we go. Just want to move this here out of the way. There we go. Well, today we are being joined by Alison Todd online, live from Canberra here in our Zoom window. She is from the Office of the Arts. She currently is the Assistant Secretary of the Arts Development and Investment Branch in the Office of the Arts. Hello, Alison. Then we've got from left to right, Ashley Hunter, welcome. She is the Manager of Partnerships and Curator of the Festival of Place, Cities Revitalisation and Place at the New South Wales Department of Transport. And she's also Macquarie University alumni. Welcome. Then we've got Kate Nixon. She is operations manager at the International Federation of Arts Council and Culture Agencies. Welcome. Then we've got Rafaela Jude. She's currently working at Medtronics ANZ here on campus, I believe. And she is the Corporate Communications Associate. And we've got Yuki Kawakami from the Art Gallery of New South Wales. And she's tertiary and youth programs producer. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. Well, I'd like to kick off the panel with a few questions. And after about, say, 45 minutes or so, I'd like to open up to student questions here from the students in our room, but also online. For our online students, just a reminder that the session will be recorded. And ideally, you just want to type your questions into the chat, and my colleague Tari will read them out. Yeah. Maybe not? Okay, well then. Can I just ask you to introduce yourselves and including your organization, your current role or roles and your study background? And can I start with Alison?
Thanks, Lena. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thanks. Hi, everyone. What an amazing array of women on the panel. Very glad to be here with you today. Coming from Canberra, sorry I couldn't join you in person. I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you today from Ngunnawal country, and I pay my respects to Ngunnawal elders past, present and emerging, and extend that acknowledgement to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today online or in the room. A quick snapshot on me. Look, you know, I can talk about myself for a very long time. It's an easy topic, isn't it, when you've got to talk about yourself? But in a snapshot, I studied a Bachelor of Arts at ANU in Canberra. I graduated in 1995. I did intend to do a law degree and an arts degree combined, but my marks weren't quite high enough to get into that law degree. And I'm actually really glad that that's what happened, because after having 1 year of studying an arts degree, my mind was fully occupied and engaged with a whole range of subjects that I had access to studying. In that first year of uni, I did study English literature, sociology, Australian history and anthropology. And that first year gave me a taster to something that I discovered I loved, and that was anthropology. So I did end up doing effectively a double major in anthropology, which included studying Indigenous studies, it was called at the time. I really didn't know what I wanted to do after I left uni. I knew that when I finished school, I just wanted to go to uni. And in terms of the type of work that I ended up falling into after university, I had an opportunity to go and work at the National Museum of Australia, which existed as an entity when I graduated from university, but it didn't have a big traditional museum as we now know. So the building itself wasn't built. At that time, the National Museum occupied Old Parliament House in Canberra. And so I had the opportunity to work in, you know, an amazing building with a lot of history, both inside and outside the building, with the tent embassy being outside the building, but being a major part of the history and the story of that building. That also, I guess, opened my mind to taking on some further study. So I actually, following working there, or while I was working there, decided to take on some additional studies in cultural heritage management, which led me down a different path. After taking a few years off to go and live and work overseas, when I returned to Australia, I really just wanted to have a Monday to Friday job that paid me sick leave and holiday leave. And so through a recruitment agency, I ended up working in the Australian Public Service and started working off, you know, doing data entry effectively in a grants program. I don't really think at that stage that I knew the range of jobs that I would have the opportunity to work in the public service on a whole range of different subject matter. But the skills that I developed during my arts degree, some of the things that were mentioned earlier, critical thinking and research and how to write and structure an argument, have been crucial to me having a job in the public service. I started off in that grants program working in the areas of Indigenous employment, and then later moved into regional grants, so supporting regional communities to access funding from the government to do a range of community development projects. I then moved into working really randomly into transport security, and that's just because I found someone that I really looked up to as a leader who trained me in the ways about how government works and how processes within government work. And I really liked working with this person. And so when they moved jobs, they got me to come and work with them. So I had the opportunity then to work in transport security, which was something that I really didn't know much about. But again, the skills that I had were transferable in going into that job. And we supported a number of airlines and airports build up their security capabilities after 9/11. After that, I again followed someone that I really liked to work with and randomly ended up working in the environment department. There I was exposed to undertaking environmental impact assessments. Again, something I hadn't had much experience in, but my skills were transferable. And not long after that, I moved into working into an area that I actually was passionate about within government, and that was working in arts policy, arts support. The Office for the Arts is a unit, I guess, that has moved around in many different government departments, and it's usually our moves happen because we work for a minister who has one role, but then really, really wants to work and look after the arts as well. And so I've actually been working here now in the Office for the Arts for the federal government for over 10 years. But again, during that time, I've had so many different types of jobs. I've worked with Indigenous communities to bring their ancestral remains back to country from overseas museums. I've provided funding to Indigenous communities to develop language, skills in their communities, record their languages, revive their languages, practice their languages and teach young kids language. And currently...
on just a moment.
Samita, can you please mute yourself?
Oh, sorry.
Keep going, Alison.
Thanks. I've now found myself in the last couple of years really working closely with the performing arts sector. And that's been a real challenge over the last couple of years because of COVID. I love the performing arts. You know, personally in my life, I love going to see a great musical. I love going to see a great band. And through my job now, I've been able to provide a lot of funding to organisations, arts organisations and performing arts organisations to ensure that they could keep operating effectively over the COVID period.
Thank you, Alison.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Just in the interest of time, can I please ask you to keep to about 2 minutes for your answer?
Sorry, Lena.
Thank you. No, good. Can I please move on to Ashley?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? It's really nice to be back at Macquarie University. This is where I did my degree. I don't believe this degree necessarily exists in the same form anymore, but I did a Bachelor of Creative Arts in Visual and Performing Arts Management. So it was I guess now you can major in some of those areas, but at the time it was a brand new degree about setting up arts administrators to be able to understand accounting, and we did theatre, we did visual arts, human resource management, marketing. It was a really broad brushstroke of the industry. But at the time, my passion was to be an actress. I was really into theatre, and my time on campus, and my biggest advice while you're here is to find your people and care about what you do, find your passions. I was always involved in the Lighthouse Theatre Drama Society. I was the paper photographer, because back in the day we had to still print photographs. I was in the dark room. I feel really old. Pre-digital. And I programmed bands at the uni bar. So I guess I say that because that was really what I cared about. I cared about the performing arts. So I left, I became an actress for about 8 years in the independent theatre scene and professional scene in Sydney, and was working at Belvoir Street Theatre in the bar, really just prioritising finding people that were my people. But then I knocked on a door one day at the Brett Whiteley studio in Surrey Hills, because I knew they needed life models, and spoke to the curator at the time, who said, well, what's your background? I said, oh, I've got a Bachelor of Creative Arts and Visual Performing Arts Management, but I really just want to be an actor and, you know, happy to get some extra money on the weekends. And she said, apply for this job, which was the manager of the Whiteley studio on the weekends, just invigilating. Within 3 months, I was doing that on the weekends. And then I went and started Art After Hours with her at the Art Gallery of New South Wales, and ran that program for about 15 years. Left there, went over to a secondment at Sydney Living Museums to do a major public art commission with a Rotary Gamilaroi artist, Jonathan Jones. And that's where I met my leader, Caroline Butler-Bowden, who took me into the Department of Planning. And I can tell you right now that if you had told me that in 20 years after leaving university that I would be working in the Department of Planning and now in the Department of Transport, I would not have believed it. But running a festival called the Festival of Place, which is across all of New South Wales, still kind of doing the same thing, putting on music, putting on performances, bringing audiences and diverse communities together, and always championing First Nations voices. So that's where I am at now. I start a new role within the department next week, which is very exciting too. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Over to Kate.
Hi, everyone. You might tell from my voice, I'm from New Zealand. So that's where I did my first degree, which was a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. And then I ended up in Australia and kind of fell into human resources as my first kind of career path. And that was good, but it didn't really kind of light my fire. I spent, a number of years working in sort of different sectors, but sort of finished up working for Deloitte, which is one of the big four accounting firms. And then when the GFC happened, I decided what a great opportunity to retrain and sort of follow some sort of a different path. So I enrolled in a Bachelor of Visual Arts at the ANU in Canberra, where I majored in glass blowing. So I trained as a glass blower. After that degree, I spent 2 years in an intensive associateship program at the Jam Factory, which is a craft and design centre in Adelaide. And then at the end of that, moved back to Canberra, and I had secured a fellowship in Germany for later that year after I had finished at the Jam Factory, and I had a few months to spare while I was sort of kicking around in Canberra. So I volunteered myself, I proposed an internship to Craft ACT, Craft and Design Centre, which is like a gallery kind of craft space in Canberra. And they took me on. And then by the time I finished my fellowship in Germany, they were like, when do you get back? Can you start the day after you arrive? So they needed help, and the timing was right. So I started back with Craft ACT when I was back in Australia, and basically kind of spent about 4 years or so with that organisation, kind of in all aspects of the organisation, but primarily as a program director, and with sort of my main kind of project that I looked after each year was a design festival in Canberra. So that kind of gave me a lot of different experiences. It was very fast paced, quite intense, but lots of fun, very kind of sort of grassroots, dealing directly with artists and craftspeople, which was my passion. and also sort of practicing my own craft on the side. Then just last year decided to make a move back to Sydney. So that's when I secured the role, my current role, which is the operations manager at an organization called IFICA, which no one really has heard of, which stands for International Federation of Arts Councils and Culture Agencies. It's quite a small not-for-profit organization where sort of not a very public-facing organization necessarily, but basically what we do is we have a network of about 70 countries, and we deal with the either sort of arts councils or ministries of culture, so such as the Australia Council, and we primarily deal with their leadership teams and create sort of spaces for peer-to-peer networking, thought leadership. We do sort of knowledge and sort of research as well. And part of that kind of the work that we do, we deliver a world conference every 3 years. So we've got a the World Summit on Arts and Culture coming up in May next year in Stockholm. And we're also involved in some other sort of big like international projects. So it's quite a change from Craft ACT. It's very sort of like a much more kind of formal tone to the work we do, because we're dealing very much with that sort of senior leadership sort of level and with government rather than with sort of like your like artists. But it's great. There's lots of international collaboration, which I really love. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Rafaela.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Rafaela. Thanks, Lena and team, for having me. So I'm currently working as a corporate communications associate at Medtronic Australasia. So I graduated from Macquarie University in 2019 with a Bachelor of Arts Media, went on to do my master's at University of Sydney. So I did a master's in international relations and human rights. So I've nonstop been studying 5 years, and I finally have a break to get into the workforce. But throughout the 5 years as well, I've been able to work in different areas. I worked at University of Sydney in accommodation services, and then worked for a global charity as a global communications coordinator, and now, of course, in medical tech. So the beauty of being in communications and media and the arts is you can go into any industry. The opportunities are endless, which I found. And it's really opened my eyes to, people often think, oh, you're doing an arts degree, but I work with clinicians and scientists who find it very difficult to tell a story. And that's why they need storytellers like you. And the fact that you're sitting here is testament for your drive to discover everything that, the arts degree can do for you. So I'm sure there'll be more questions along the way, but if you have any questions at all, I'm happy to answer it and network you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Yuki.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming along today. So I work at the Art Gallery New South Wales, and I'm the tertiary and youth programs producer there. I actually studied a Bachelor of Design straight after high school, and it's a 4-year degree, but I ended up studying for 3 years of that 4 years and decided that I didn't want to pursue that. and then I went back to Japan and spent 2 years working as a paraprofessional. So English as an English language teacher, and I did that for 2 years. And because I grew up in Australia, it was really interesting for me to see what the education system is like, and going to school in Japan was like for me. So I really enjoyed that. But interestingly enough, I found it very hard to assimilate back into my home country when I went back to Japan. So I decided to return to Australia on my own, and then I transferred into a Bachelor of Arts at UNSW and majored in art history and secondary education. So after that, I took on a lot of volunteer sort of placements and internships. My first volunteer work was with the 18th Biennale of Sydney, and it was freezing cold out in Cockatoo Island, and we helped to invigilate artworks. And also I was supporting a Japanese artist called Sachiko Abe, who was doing a performance work there at the time. And I really enjoyed working really closely with artists. And I've also got a dance background too. So as I was kind of doing these internships and, studying at the same time, I kind of formed this idea that I really wanted to pursue a career in the arts. And after 3 other sort of internships, working at a commercial gallery space in Annandale called Annandale Galleries, as well as I interned at Fringe Festival. I finally got the courage to apply for an internship at the Art Gallery New South Wales, where Ashley actually interviewed me. And so I really owe a lot to Ashley because she really supported me in my sort of initial step into the arts. And then since then, I've been working at the Art Gallery for, this will be my 9th year at the gallery. And so from Art After Hours, I also worked across special exhibitions and collection programming. And from there, I have also worked as an assistant curator to the Japan Supernatural exhibition, which was on in 2019, which completely has been one of the highlights of my career, connecting with the Japanese community as well, which is, you know, it's, I guess, quite new to me to, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Japanese diaspora here in Sydney is very dispersed. So I didn't really grow up knowing many Japanese kids or anything like that, or Japanese community members. So I really thrived in that environment and wanted to connect more with my culture. And then from there, I've been working, you know, I'm really passionate about supporting students and young people. So one of the projects that I run at the Art Gallery is the Youth Collective program, where it's through an application process, but 15 to 24-year-olds apply from across New South Wales to be part of a 1-year mentorship program. And I work with them to create programs, or, you know, give them support in hosting their own interviews, or really just bringing their creative ideas to life within the art gallery space. So yeah, just a whole range of things. And yeah, hopefully we can chat about it in person later.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
great. And as you can see, there's a variety of organizations that might be interested in talking to you, as you heard just now. Yuki, can I continue with you? Can you tell us a little bit about what graduates or current students should know about your organization and how to get their foot into the door, possibly through internships or volunteering or graduate program?
Absolutely. So the Art Gallery New South Wales is in a very exciting place at the moment because our building is expanding. So we have this new building that is opening at the beginning of December that has been designed by the Japanese architect firm Sana. I have to say, like, every time I host students at the Art Gallery New South Wales, I sort of put the question onto them and ask, well, what kind of jobs are available, you know, in the arts? How does an exhibition come together? And, you know, we only see really the artworks on display, but I love seeing, you know, the faces of students light up when they go, oh, actually, how did these artworks get up on the wall? So of course there's like anywhere from like installers, right? The team that put the artworks up on display, and that can be anywhere from a part-time to a casual job of practicing artists that really want to focus on their practice, but then on the side want to, you know, still be really involved in the community of arts workers as well. And then the other day I was having a conversation with a young person who was really interested in science and also the visual arts. And of course, there's a role like conservation if you're interested in that area. And then other things that I often advise young people is that I really had no idea what I wanted to do straight after high school, let alone when I was doing my bachelor degree. And like my part-time work experience or my casual work experience working in retail or working in hospitality, working in, you know, I worked at a project management firm doing administrative tasks. All those different skills were able to be sort of transferred and applied into my work currently. And I think that's really important because I think young people are really just wanting to get to that end point, but it's not necessarily the case. Like, it's not a linear experience whatsoever. And just just remember that all of these different experiences are going to really support you in finding what you really want to do. Because at the end of the day, if you reach where you think you want to be and that's not what you want to achieve, then you have to kind of start all over again.
Very true. Rafaela.
I can definitely talk to that. So when I moved to Australia, I was 17. So I moved as an international student from India. And of course, the cultural differences, everything's quite different. My family, everyone's back home. So it's starting your life from scratch. And the one thing that really pushed me was volunteering within the university itself. So I'd highly recommend the Macquarie University Mentors Program, the Buddies Program, the Global Leadership Program. Really take advantage of all the things that are available to you within the campus. And especially with your degree, you also have a PACE unit. So through my PACE unit, I was able to intern 3 different places within the 1 year. So I interned with Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC, at the 7:30 news show with Lee Sales, went on to do Pulse public relation internships. So everything that you have on campus with your degree, like Yuki said, amalgamates your experience, sort of adds up to be, there's no final goal, I think. You're always pushing yourself and your own boundaries, but there's so many opportunities within university. And I think with an arts degree, you also have the opportunity and the time to practically apply everything you've learned in class. So I always encourage you to talk to your professors. They're always, often they're in the field, so they have great networks. They'll be able to put you in touch with people who give you those opportunities. And of course, don't be afraid of, applying for jobs or internships that you see in big companies. It can often be daunting and they have this huge application process, but trust me, if maybe 2 people apply, you have high chances of even getting in. So internships, as much as, they're unpaid most of the time, but that 1 month experience is probably 1 year's worth of learning that you'll get in university. So I would really push you to 3 years back when I graduated 3 years back from the arts degree, and I never thought I'd see myself in a place working within medical tech, being part of alleviating pain, restoring health, extending life with an arts degree for people across the world. So the opportunities are endless, but I'd say, you've got to start now, and the University, Macquarie University, has lots of opportunities for you to explore. That's what I'd say to that.
That's true. And if you've got any questions, you can come and see us and talk about that. Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with everything that you guys have said. Definitely, there's lots of different opportunities that you can draw on that sort of build over time to make you really employable. And, I guess we were sort of just chatting about, sometimes the unpaid internship can be a little bit problematic in terms of sort of exploiting people, but it's a great time when you're at uni to, when you're sort of really focused on your studies, to take those opportunities of when internships are built into the course program, to use those opportunities. But even just, volunteering to help out at festivals or events and sort of conferences and things like that align with, your personal interests are all going to give you, really get great kind of experiences and understanding of how things sort of work behind the scenes, but also build that network. And I think so much of sort of, securing opportunities is, developing that network and sort of through word of mouth, hearing about opportunities through people. The role that I'm in currently, I found out about it because someone that I follow on Twitter tweeted about it and was like, these guys are the best. And I was like, well, if she says they're the best, then I better apply for that job, So you never know where the opportunity is going to sort of present itself. So I think just sort of putting yourself out there and, participating, showing up is going to sort of stand you in a lot of stead.
Thank you. Ashley?
I don't know if there's a lot more to offer other than I know firsthand that internships do lead to wonderful career opportunities, as you can see with Yuki. And many of the other interns that did come through that program. I'd also just say don't ever underestimate creative thinking and relationships, and that, I've realized recently that the thing that I love the most is that problem solving, and in every role that you get to go through is that you, from an arts degree and from the humanities background or creative arts, you do have this thirst to untangle situations, and the biggest thing is to keep going, put yourself out there, knock on doors, maintain relationships, cherish the leaders that you come across, and always find good leaders because they are key.
Yeah, and don't burn any bridges. As you can see, your pathways might always cross again. Alison?
Yeah, thanks. I think in terms of pathways into the public service, they've definitely diversified over the years because we are desperate for great staff. There's lots of jobs and we don't have enough people. And so there are many different ways to get your foot in the door in the public service obviously through graduate programs has been one of the main ways, but now there are also a number of kind of taster programs. So while you're studying at university, you can apply to do kind of summer roles that may only last for 6 to 8 weeks in the public service. Obviously through recruitment agencies, if it's short-term or long-term opportunities. I think the Australian Public Service Commission is a really good website. If you just Google Australian Public Service Commission, you'll find there's a whole heap of tips and tricks on how to navigate some of the processes or, bureaucratic processes that we have in place for recruitment. But also there are many opportunities advertised there and through the Gazette, through those different range of entry programs that will just give you a taster to see what it's like. And you'll find, similar to some of the other panelists have said, if you're working for someone you really like working for, find those people that, you want to continue working for, and they, hopefully will help you knock on other doors and link you up with colleagues that have opportunities that they think you might be suitable for.
Thank you. I would like to open up the questions now to the students online and in person. So please don't feel shy to put up your hand. We'll come over with a microphone. I'm sure you've got plenty of questions for our panelists. Have that for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll have a bit of a networking session over some finger food at the back as well. So do you mind if I use the microphone? Who's got any questions? Yes, please. We'll come over right there.
I'll come over and hold the mic to be COVID safe. So if you can raise your hand so I can find you. Perfect, right here. Great.
Hi guys, thank you for everything and the talking, and it's wonderful for a lot of us to take from that. I just wanted to ask, a lot of these degrees that we do are creative in nature, and I think a lot of people's personalities lend itself to that. So any advice for putting yourself out there for people that are kind of introverted or shy or struggle naturally to do that and to find opportunities that way?
Anybody?
I would say don't be afraid to be a specialist in what you really are interested in, because I think the more that you follow, so say, I mean, I don't know what's your degree and what's your, yeah, I think it's okay to hone in. I think there's a lot of, the workforce now becomes a lot more generalist, but we do still, I think through the process of specializing and caring about something really specific to you, the more you will feel comfortable to come out and be in those areas with the same people. And, you might end up totally a generalist like I have, I guess, but I don't know why that would be my advice to you, but is to the introvert thing. I don't know.
Yeah, so just a quick example. So I'm quite extroverted by nature. So people are like, yeah, she can go get, but I completely understand where you're coming from, because one of my best friends, while studying at university, we did the same degree. He's quite introverted in nature, but we need different people in the industry itself. And now he's into a CR doing incredible work, creating incredible content, and that's unique to him, and what he does, I could never do. So that's why if you write down your piece of paper, I always, when I feel really demotivated, I write down Earth and E-A-R-T-H. You take out A-R-T, the Earth is just The Earth without art is literally just So everyone is unique in their own way, and it's just having that confidence in yourself. It doesn't matter if you're not boisterous, you're not going out there and talking to people. That's totally fine. There is a job, there is a role that only you can do and you will specialize in, and they need you for that specific role, and you will grow within that role. Because if everyone's the same, that's where there's no creativity in that. And yeah, so what I see him doing, and he's done incredibly well to a CR, 2GB, he's gone to Channel 7. There's a lot of technical roles as well if you're into that. I mean, I know in philosophy, but always having that confidence that what you do, no one else can do is would be helpful. Yeah, if you're ever feeling down.
100%. And the best teams are made up of all of those people. And I think that is a really important thing to realize that's special in that place.
And just to add to that, being an introvert basically only just means that you recharge in a different way to people that are more extrovert. You might recharge being, sitting in nature or doing, artwork, right? Doesn't mean you're not capable of talking to people. Your span of, being able to socialize might be shorter. Yeah. So just something to keep in mind as well. Any other questions?
Got a couple on chat, actually. I'll ask quickly. So the first one from Jerry. As an international student from Samoa, he'll be going back after his studies. He'd like to know, what extent does a BA from MQ influence his employability areas dominated by commerce and finance?
In what ways can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. So basically he's asking, how can he use his Macquarie Arts degree back in his home country of Samoa in an economy that seems to be dominated by more commerce degree holders, like within banking and finance? I guess he didn't type it in, but part of it would determine which industry he wants to go into as well. But I wonder if the panel could speak to that in a general sense. Otherwise, we as careers advisors can also give them some information as well.
Any advice for the student?
I can share to that. As an international student from India, I'm very grateful. My parents are extremely supportive, but my sister's a doctor, and then there's me doing an arts degree, and black sheep of the family. But in cultures and countries where, being a doctor, lawyer, engineer is sort of the main thing, I think coming overseas, it's not just about the degree you do, the experiences you have. So I tell the Samoan student, your experience and international experience that you have is invaluable. And you can translate that in, whatever the country needs and where you can sort of grow there as well. So I'd say having a degree, first of all, is a big plus point. You've already checkmarked that. That's something employers look for, and you've got that from overseas. You've lived overseas, you have this international experience. When you take that back home, it's just how you apply it to, domestically still find the way to connect with your people with the experiences you have overseas is something that I would push. So definitely down the line, I would still like to go home, build my charity there. So that's finding ways to being a global citizen, I guess. And that's what this person has learned through Macquarie and can definitely apply when they go back home.
Thank you.
And I would just add that I think that those transferable skills that we've spoken about several times, like writing, critical thinking, they are skills that all industries need. And, and they're actually not that common. So, people who are really good at writing or really good at sort of, all of the, or communicating, that is a precious and a valuable skill that employers will pay money for.
I agree. Yeah. We've got a student at the back, a question.
Sure, I'll come to you.
Thank you. When looking at jobs to apply for, how important is that in the job descriptions we look for something that's as explicitly like the art skills and the transferable skills, or should we be reading between the lines to try to interpret the job description that's targeting arts graduates?
Is that a question for anybody in particular or open? Go for it. Anybody has some recruitment experience as well? Oh, Alison, yeah?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to respond to that question. I think you'll find, well, especially in the public service, the public service is looking for the types of skills that you are applying, learning, developing in your degree. And it might not be a specific reference in a job description that says, and we're looking for people with arts degrees, but they are looking for people with great writing skills. They're looking for people with critical thinking skills. They're looking for people who are good communicators, who can articulate an argument and do it in a succinct way, drawing on evidence. So my tip is to, it's not necessarily the job description itself, it's about the skills that they are looking for. And most job ads, well, in the public service, they will definitely talk about the types of skills that they want applicants to have. And so in your application, you need to provide examples about how you can demonstrate that you have those skills or that you have the ability to learn and develop those skills, which with an arts degree, you absolutely have. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Alison. And Yuki?
Oh, hi. One hot tip that I have is it might be really scary, but it's always really valuable to contact the key person that's listed on the job ad, because rather than reading between the lines, you can just talk to them and ask them, directly about the role description. And sometimes, the titles that are advertised don't necessarily might not match with your skills as well, because depending on different organizations, the sort of hierarchy or the different jobs have different names, right? So I strongly encourage everyone to just reach out and have a chat. And it actually gives you a competitive advantage, because the person that's employing you is going to remember, oh yeah, I actually spoke to this person. And if you're also doing like an entry-level job, there's so many like hundreds to 200 applications, and you really want to stand out. And just having that 10-15 minute conversation is really going to go far, I think.
I agree. Just be prepared. They might turn it into a quick telephone interview, right? Did you want to? Yeah.
I just want to add also, if you say you don't get an interview, or you do get an interview, but you don't get the role, always follow up and ask for feedback. It's something that I learned really early on, and it has one job that I didn't get. I rang up and I said, how did I not get that job? I'm so qualified. They said, you seemed so laid back and like you didn't really want it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I came across like that. And from then I learned really quickly that you have to be quite, treat that environment, even though it's so artificial, but in a really different way.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Got one online. That's all right.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll alternate. So from Poppy, this may be a great question for Alison. About to commence a PhD in geography and planning. How do employers, particularly in the Australian public service, view people with PhDs in the arts for hiring?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just so you know, I mean, my boss, who's quite senior now in the public service, he's got a PhD in philosophy, and I have a couple of colleagues who also have PhDs. So I would say we look upon them favorably. There's no disadvantage. There's probably an advantage, because I know that you've got determination. I know that you've committed yourself to something for several years to achieve a goal. You've obviously got great research skills, so I would say that, I look favorably upon all kinds of experiences that people bring in applications, but yeah, definitely not a disadvantage or, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does, yes. Thank you. Yes,
Questions in the room?
please, over there.
Raise your hand again, sorry.
We've got it here in the middle with the purple jacket. Just here's.
Okay, gotcha. Raise them high, like, don't be shy. All right.
I'm doing like international studies. In terms of like career and things like that, I'm not really sure where in the public service it would lead me. Like I have, yeah. Like,
So
I have applied for interviews and internships, but I think all of them just said that I didn't have enough skills, so I'm not sure where it would be.
So we've got a student studying international studies, and she's not sure where that could take her. Any words of advice?
So I did, my bachelor's was in arts media and my master's is international relations, human rights. And I was in a similar boat being like, where would this take you? And you'd be surprised, there's a lot of opportunities with like being a policy analyst or, you know, it's at the end of the day, it just becomes your skills and you can start small. Like no one's saying go become a diplomat at the UN now, you know, it's just those stepping stones that you have to sort of build yourself up with. And once you get in, there are a lot of internal opportunities as well within post-government and within advocacy roles as well. So there's a lot of nonprofit organizations who look for international studies sort of background and those skills that you can offer. So it is, it's not very niche, I think, as people think it is, because once you sort of progress in your degree, you will see there are a lot of roles that, you know, maybe your professors would refer you onto that come up. So I think it's just keeping your eyes peeled for those opportunities when they come up. It's not as clear as maybe, you know, finance, accounting, but they are in the market, definitely.
And with any degree, if you're not quite sure, you know, which way to go, it's best to, you know, just trial out a few careers through volunteering, internships, you know, putting your hand up for certain things. And you might go, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want to be doing. Or yeah, maybe not quite. Maybe I'll try something else. Any other comments you would like to add?
And I think sometimes it's just kind of breaking the seal on jobs. So, you know, it might not be your sort of dream job first off. It might not be the kind of grad role in DFAT or something like that. But, you know, getting some like kind of parallel experience in a sort of similar sector or working in, you know, maybe it's in a call center or something like that where you're dealing with a similar kind of area to what you're looking to be working in, is just kind of getting you into the door. And then you, once you're sort of in somewhere, then you can start sort of transferring those skills and sort of seeing what's around there. So I think a lot of the sort of first jobs that you take help you kind of actually just really understand how things work kind of behind the scenes and on the other side. And sometimes it's quite different to what you actually imagine it's going to be like. I mean, you know, one of the things I was thinking preparing for this conversation was like, you know, a lot of people have an idea in their mind of what it's like to work in the arts. And, you know, sometimes it seems really glamorous because public facing, you do see the beautiful, you know, gallery, everything's tidy. And it's, you know, people are having some champagne or something like that, when really like the reality of the people that are working there is quite different to that on most of the day. So, you know, we often scrub up well, but, you know, you'll find that everybody, you know, covered in paint, sweating, running around, you know, so stuff like that. So often it's just kind of getting an idea of how things are happening within a sort of industry. And that might mean that you make a totally different change, you know, and go in a very different direction.
Thank you. I'd like to take the last student question. Do we have one more online?
I'll do one more online if that's okay. The students in the room will have a networking session after another half hour for you to engage with the panel. The rest of the questions on the chat, I'll try to answer, or maybe can they reach out to you all maybe on LinkedIn if they have questions that we don't get to? Perfect. Okay. So students that questions aren't answered, feel free to find the panel list on LinkedIn and reach out. So question for Allison from Ebony. Do you find there are any pushbacks in your respective minister due to being joined with the infrastructure and transport departments? More specifically, do you find the arts is left behind with regards to funding at all? So she's done her research there a bit.
That's a really great question. No, it's really interesting the way that government departments have evolved over, say, the last maybe 6 to 9 years, in that we no longer have one minister per department in the Commonwealth anyway. So, you know, my current department name is the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts. But spanning our department, I think we report now to, it's a little less now that we've changed to a Labor government, but I think we have about 5 different ministers. But for the arts, we have a dedicated minister. So that's it's currently Tony Burke, and he has a couple of responsibilities, not just for the arts, but also for workplace relations. So he actually works across multiple government departments. The one great thing, as I mentioned earlier, about the arts is that we usually end up with a minister who really, really cares about the arts. Like they have gone in and fought to have that role. And so, yes, sometimes amongst some of my public service colleagues, we have to make very strong arguments about the value of investing in the arts, and it is just as important you know, to invest money in infrastructure, let's say, versus investing in the arts. But actually, it's my job to demonstrate to those colleagues of mine how the arts spans all of those other portfolios. You know, that the arts makes a contribution to our health and well-being, that education in the arts is important, that the arts contributes to our economy. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, please.
I'd like to just talk also to that. When I got brought into the Department of Planning, we had the first ever Minister for Public Spaces, I think, in the world, Minister Stokes. And one of the things that he wanted to do was build the narrative around public spaces, the importance of quality, beautiful public spaces and the public realm and civic life. And so I found myself in these big teams of planners and architects and landscape architects and data analysis people. And yet we were there to build a story and a narrative. And so that's where the Festival of Place came in. So instead of it just being comms and media releases and, you know, paying external ad companies to do it, we brought the arts community and artists in to help tell that story. And it was just the most extraordinary cultural change that transformed that whole Department of Planning in the way that they looked at arts. And then COVID, you know, hit, and the first thing we all, you know, turned to was our, you know, books and TV and stories and music. And I think that economic and jobs kind of narrative with the arts is actually really starting to gear up, as opposed to being such a nice to have or sort of light and fluffy. I think we've realized how critical, and I do believe also government agencies are really changing in the way that they see that, and they see the kind of qualities that you do get from degrees like the one you're doing. Oh. Shout out Minister Stokes, they're very good. Yeah.
Do we have any closing thoughts or comments? In particular, is there any hot tips for our students? Any programs going at the moment? Any websites they should know of? Any professional associations they should become a member of? Over to you.
I'll let them talk about, I think they've probably got some other really good tips about the, you know, professional gateways. My advice is have fun, like enjoy this time and enjoy those years as you start to go out into the world and get as many experiences traveling and having fun, I think, and not worry that if you're 22 or 26 that you haven't found some kind of amazing career path yet, that there's so much time in your life ahead to go in all sorts of directions, and to make sure you just really enjoy that.
How do I follow that? I mean, I totally agree. From a sort of practical perspective, thinking about sort of, you know, maybe interviewing or sort of applying for job tips, I would say, you know, sort of work smarter, not harder with the applications. Sending out 100 applications that you've just cut and pasted and not sort of put any effort into them is not going to get you very far. But, you know, really taking the time to research, tailor an application to a couple of really sort of carefully chosen opportunities is likely to have much more success. And likewise, when you get to, you know, if you're lucky enough to get to the interview stage, you know, we're doing a lot of interviews via Zoom and things like that, still kind of presenting and preparation is really important. In all roles, you need to be able to sort of be put in front of clients and important people. So you want to give your sort of, put your best sort of face forward when you're, you know, in front of the interview sort of panel, and, you know, put a lot of effort into the research of the organization. So yeah, just putting in the sort of the background work before you send it all off.
Yeah, I completely agree with what was said. And also really using the resources on campus. I use Career Hub quite a bit. They sort of proofread your resumes and your cover letters, so please take advantage of that. There's also a score. You can just put your, I think your resumes online, it'll give you a score. So there's a lot for you if you just, you know, take advantage of what's on campus as well. And especially if you're in your penultimate year, it can be quite daunting. You may not know where to apply. And but if you're looking to go into big corporate or pharma, there's also like a best companies list. If you want to be sort of, you know, very picky with where you want to apply, but I think there's a lot of opportunities in regardless of industry, but also within campus, they'll be able to direct you to various roles. So I'd say just really take advantage of Career Hub. Some incredible counselors. I actually used Tyree once. So he was one of my counselors a couple of years back. So I remember chatting with him and being like, because I'm on a visa, what do I do? And now I'm at a place where my company is sponsoring me, so I can stay longer in the country. So if you're an international student as well, there's that added pressure. So I'd say just, you know, stick to what you believe and your values, and people will see that and help you navigate your way. If it is, you know, staying longer in the country, for example. So I think bring your unique self to work. Don't try to amalgamate to what everyone else is doing, because what you believe in your values will really shine in whichever organization you're part of. That'll be my hot tip.
Thank you. Yuki?
Just to add to all of this amazing advice that everyone's given, yeah, have fun, but also I think if you don't see an opportunity out there that fits what you're interested in, you can create those opportunities as well. You know, like a couple of the young people that I've worked with over the lockdown period, they were studying fine arts at National Art School and a couple of other, you know, arts universities, and they decided to rent out one of the shop fronts in Glebe and decided to create like an artist run space and gallery themselves. And then they've got friends that are musicians and, you know, all these other creative people around them, and they just, you know, did it from scratch. And I think there is so much to be said about that too. And when you're applying for a job, kind of demonstrating your skills and your eagerness in a project like that actually really does shine through as well. So yeah.
Great advice. Thank you. And Alison?
Thanks. Yeah, that's all great advice, and I wholeheartedly support everything that everybody said. I would just add that you never know where opportunities are around you in, you know, everyday life that will help you get the job that you're interested in. You know, the people that you meet at a barbecue, your next door neighbor, you know, talk to people, find out where's a good place to work, or if you meet someone and you know, your lecturers, your tutors, they might know someone that can put you in touch with someone who has an opportunity. So don't discount, I guess, just your social networks that can help you also find jobs and opportunities that, and by taking any opportunity, you may actually uncover something that you're really interested in that you never knew kind of existed, or, you know, that wasn't an advertised job. I think word of mouth is really good in finding jobs and finding great people to work with.
Very true. Thank you. Well, thank you so much to our 5 panelists today. Go Women Power. I'm very grateful for all of you for having joined us today, and in the name of Macquarie University and the Faculty of Arts, a big heartful thank you for coming today. What we'll do now is I'm just going to hand over to Tari to talk about our Employable Youth series shortly, and then we can all meet at the back over a bit of a networking session for the next 30 minutes or so. If you've got any more questions for our panelists, please help yourselves to some finger food there as well. And I hope you enjoyed the session today. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, panel. I'll be very brief on this. So Employable You is basically our extended engagement session for all students. Feel free to take a seat, panel. Yeah, thank you so much again. So just briefly, we have a number of events going on that are advertised on Career Hub. There's a QR code you can scan to see the full schedule. We have a pop-up stall every Tuesday and Thursday in the Central Courtyard with our careers team from 12 to 2, We also have, from what the panel talked about today with employable skills, transferable skills, we have a workshop on what that is, how you can demonstrate that, and also what Macquarie's 14 employability skills are and how you can work on those if you're finding yourself falling short. We also have interviewing skills, which is here. I'm gonna be doing that one on Friday with a colleague of mine, Jen, in the library. And if you have an interview coming up or if interviews make you nervous or scared, we're gonna have a really easy session on how to prepare as well as some practice. So you can practice common interview questions with a friend or whoever is beside you to really get better answering those questions. And the stars here indicate hybrid delivery. So we'll be doing the presentations hybridly so that you can either come in person or log in, just like today. Also with the pop-up stalls, we have prizes and giveaways. So if you just come and simply check in using the QR code of the pop-up stall, you'll be entered into win a $50 voucher. We also have weekly prizes of $50 for any event you attend each week during our Employable Youth Series. And then finally, the major prize draw of $250. You attend at least one Employable Youth Series event or activity for 3 weeks or more, you go into a drawing for a $250 gift voucher. So we're really trying to get involved, really trying to put ourselves in front of you at convenient times and accessible times to you. And then finally, this slide here with the big QR code is how you can tap into our online resources that Rafaela talked about in terms of Career Hub, as well as instant resume checks. All that is housed in this QR code. So if you scan that, you can see access to our services, log in, find what's helpful, and you can also self-help, as well as, of course, book appointments and that sort of thing. There's also our social media links listed as well. That's it for me. Thank you so much for your time and attention today, both in person and online. Best of luck going forward, and feel free to stick around and mingle with our esteemed panelists here. Thank you so much. And thank you to Lena and Yuki as well.
The restrooms. If you go outside, there is a sign somewhere not official, but you'll see. Of course.